Some called him a monster, others a genius. Attila the Hun didn't just fight battles, he waged psychological warfare that left entire nations paralyzed with fear. But there's something more to his story, something deeper than just his brutal conquests. Join us as we explore the unstoppable force that was Attila, often called the scourge of God, and the secrets behind his unmatched success. Attila wasn't born into power, and he wasn't born into wealth. He was a man who rose from the steppes of Central Asia to become the most feared figure in his time. His story didn't just change the course of history, it shaped the very borders of Europe and Asia as we know them today. Attila's birth date is still a mystery. Some historians suggest 395 to 406 AD. He was born into the Huns, a nomadic group whose origins are still debated. Were they the descendants of the Xiongnu, the nomads who terrorized China's Han dynasty centuries earlier? No one knows for sure. What we do know is that the Huns, by the end of the 4th century, had crossed the Volga River, which runs through modern-day Russia, and began expanding into Europe. By the time Attila and his brother Bleda took charge of the Huns in 434 AD, they had already become a serious threat. But it wasn't just their cavalry that made them powerful. It was Attila's ruthless genius that transformed the Huns from a loose confederation of tribes into a true empire. The first major event of his reign? A treaty. The Treaty of Margus, signed in 435 AD between the Huns and the Eastern Roman Empire, modern-day Turkey, Greece, and the Balkans. This treaty was immensely favorable to Attila, who secured an annual tribute of 700 pounds of gold from the Romans. But Attila was far from satisfied. By 447 AD, he launched his first major campaign against the Eastern Roman Empire, now headquartered in Constantinople, which is modern-day Istanbul. He crossed the Danube River, the lifeblood of Eastern Europe, and devastated the provinces like Moesia and Illyricum, which now encompasses part of Serbia, Bulgaria, and Albania. Entire cities were razed, and over 100 cities fell to his armies. The Huns didn't just defeat their enemies, they broke their spirits. Fear spread faster than the armies, and often cities surrendered without a fight. Imagine that. Attila's most powerful weapon wasn't his cavalry, it wasn't his amazing archers. It was fear. He didn't just conquer land, he conquered hearts and minds. And when you can control the hearts and minds of your enemies, you've already won half the battle. Attila's rise to power was marked not only by brutal conquest, but by a striking humility. At a banquet for Roman diplomats, Attila chose to eat simple meat from a wooden plate and drink his wine from a wooden cup, while his guests dined on lavish dishes served on silver platters, drinking from goblets of pure gold. Attila dressed plainly. His sword, his boots, and the bridle of his horse were undecorated with gold or jewels. While his men were entertained by performers, Attila remained impassive. Until his youngest son entered. Attila's expression of fierceness and seriousness softened, and he drew his son close, gazing at him with gentle eyes. This was the mind of a man who didn't need wealth to display his power. His strength and his power came from within, from the discipline and the focus that made him a ruler feared across continents. In 451 AD, Attila set his sights on the Western Roman Empire, modern-day Italy, France, Spain, and beyond. But this invasion had a peculiar backstory. Attila claimed he had a right to half of the Western Roman Empire because of a letter from Honoria, the sister of Emperor Valentinian III. Honoria had sent Attila a ring asking for help to escape to forced marriage. Attila interpreted this as a proposal. and demanded half the empire as a dowry. But it wasn't just about honoria. Attila marched through Roman Gaul, modern-day France, laying waste to cities like Metz and Trier, which still bear the scars of his invasion today. He slaughtered anyone who resisted, and the cities that remained are a testament to the sheer destruction the Huns were capable of. The Western Roman Empire was already on the brink of collapse. But this was a death blow. Enter Flavius Aetius, one of Rome's last great generals. Aetius wasn't just a Roman. He had fought alongside the Huns in previous wars. Now, he had to fight against them. The Battle of the Catalonian Plains, fought in modern-day France, was one of the most brutal battles of the ancient world. Tens of thousands died, and the fields were said to be soaked in blood. Though the Roman Visigoth coalition technically won, Attila wasn't defeated. He retreated, but his legend only grew. The next year, 452 AD, Attila invaded Italy. His army swept through the Po Valley, sacking Aquileia, one of the most important Roman cities in the region. Today, Aquileia's ruins can still be seen in northern Italy, a testament to the destruction that the Huns brought. The city was completely destroyed, and the few survivors that were left fled to nearby marshes, eventually founding the city of Venice. The famous canals of Venice were settled by refugees escaping Attila's wrath. Rome itself was in danger, but instead of facing destruction, Attila did something unexpected. He stopped. Legend has it that Pope Leo I met Attila, and after a brief conversation, convinced him to turn back. The real reasons are likely more practical. A famine, an outbreak of disease, and a lack of supplies probably played a role. But the image of the Pope facing down the one known as the scourge of God, that stuck. And just like that, Attila returned. In 453 AD, as he celebrated his wedding to his new bride, Ildiko, Attila suddenly died. Some say that he choked on his own blood after a heavy night of drinking. Others believe he was assassinated, possibly by his new bride. His death sent shockwaves through the empire. Attila was buried in secret, somewhere in the Great Hungarian Plain, a vast grassland stretching east of modern-day Budapest, cradled by the Carpathian Mountains, his bones lying in an unmarked grave. And to this day, it has never been found. His tomb was hidden deliberately, perhaps to protect the treasure buried with him, which may have included the Sword of Mars, a gift from a humble herdsman that was said to foretell Attila's rise to power. Within a year of his death, the Hunnic Empire crumbled. Without Attila, the Huns lost their cohesion. The tribes that had once feared and followed him now turned on each other, and soon the Huns disappeared from history as quickly as they had appeared. But the impact of their invasions didn't vanish. The Goths, the Franks, the Vandals, the Lombards, all these tribes, fleeing the Huns, began moving westward, forever changing the face of Europe. The Western Roman Empire, weakened by its wars with the Huns, would fall within a few decades. The migrations that followed Attila's death set the stage for the Middle Ages, creating the foundation of modern Europe. Cities like Paris, Berlin, Budapest, and even London were shaped by the movements of tribes escaping the Huns. So, what can we learn from Attila's ruthless strategy? His reign wasn't just about conquest, it was about mastering the mind. Here are 3 lessons we can take away from his life. First, adaptability. Attila's power came not just from his military strength, but from his ability to adapt to the ever-changing political landscape at the time. He made alliances with Rome when it suited him, and he broke them just as easily when the opportunity arose. In our world, adaptability is key to survival and success, whether in business, personal growth, or leadership. Second, psychological warfare. Attila didn't need to march into every city to conquer it. His reputation alone was enough to make his enemies surrender. By controlling the narrative, he controlled the battlefield before the first sword was even raised. In today's world, this translates to understanding the power of influence, how perception can be more important than action. And third, resilience. Even after setbacks like his defeat at the Catalonian Plains, Attila did not give up. He regrouped, he learned from his mistakes, and he came back even stronger. Resilience in the face of adversity is a hallmark of true leadership. Attila's ability to keep pushing forward despite the odds is a lesson we can all apply in our lives. Attila the Hun's empire may have crumbled after his death, but his legacy remains. The Huns, under his leadership, changed the face of Europe and left a mark on history that is still felt today. From the ruins of Aquileia to the canals of Venice, from the migrations of the Franks to the eventual fall of Rome, Attila's reign may have ended, but these lessons of his ruthless strategy, those live on. If you found Attila's story captivating and want to dive even deeper into the lives of history's greatest warriors and leaders, you can like and subscribe here at War and Wisdom in History. And we'll see you in the next chapter.